Fighting games have come a long way since its arcade days. Better balance, improved graphics, and laser-focused design. Along with the evolution inside the game, controllers similarly improved. And in today's market, we have a lot of choices. No longer are the days where you're forced to play on an arcade stick, or whatever this mess is. We got button-type controllers, pads, sticks, and whatever variation that comes within those spheres. It's really cool how creative people have become, but I can see new players getting choice anxiety. So in this video, as a person who has been playing on various types of controllers for a long time, I would like to give some advice to people who are struggling to figure out what to try. With that said, I would like to preface all of this advice with things will depend on the person. There is no, this is the best type of controller, or if you're this type of person, this is what you should use. People who give definitive answers like these have very little idea on what they are talking about. If there is a clear best, we wouldn't have a Capcom Top 8 with almost an even spread between stick, button, and pad. So take whatever information you gather here and simply try things out. Before going into each controller type, I would suggest you think about a few things that pertain to you personally, as they will be important factors when deciding a controller. 1. What game and character are you planning to play? 2. What kind of background do you have? For example, what game and genre do you mainly play? Do you do any activities that train your hand dexterity like playing instruments? Do you have any hand injuries or limited motion? 3. What is your budget and convenience requirements? Alright, let's first start off with pads. There are mainly two types. Ones made for general console usage such as PlayStation and Xbox controllers, and ones that are made specifically for fighting games. First, let's compare the directional inputs. Generic controllers usually have a directional pad and analog stick. Most experienced fighting game players usually prefer the D-pad. The main reason why is that it's faster and more accurate in most cases. This will depend on how long the stick is and how much roaming space it has, but it usually takes longer to go from one direction to another on an analog stick compared to a D-pad. You can easily compare this by doing any rolling or charge inputs with both methods. Although I'm not saying you can't play on analog stick, it's just that the D-pad will generally give you a competitive edge. This is the reason why most fighting game pads have D-pad only or have it closer to the side when it has both. It's also why most pad players use PlayStation controller over Xbox. One thing to note here is that D-pads can be quite different between controllers. For example, the PlayStation controller has an indent in the middle. This may be abrasive to people who press too hard. If that is the case for you, look for one that has a flatter piece. Another thing to think about is button feel. PlayStation feels squishy while Xbox is very clicky. There are also options like adjustable sensitivity in Hori's Fighting Commander Octa, so that's another option to look out for. As for analog sticks, I would look for stick length, roaming space, and notches. Generally shorter stick length and smaller roaming space means less travel time. So they may be faster, but can be harder to do precise inputs. Notches can help with accuracy when doing motion inputs. I am a big fan of octagonal ones as it prevents me from overshooting inputs. Less accidental up inputs when doing things like quarter circles. Overall, both D-pad and analog stick should give all you need to do most fighting game inputs in a competent manner. Let's look at the action buttons. Most generic pads have 4 face and 4 shoulder buttons. Are these better than, let's say, a 6-face button layout pad or 8 or more button layout on a stick? Well, it depends on game and character. Most modern games have pad in mind first, since it's the most common controller among players. So you're not going to have much of an issue there. For games like Street Fighter 6, it may even be advantageous because you can set buttons that need reactionary inputs such as drive, impact, and parry on shoulder buttons where one of your strongest fingers are always hovering. However, with older games that were designed for arcade machines, and specific characters may prove a little cumbersome on pad. For example, classic Control Ingrid from Street Fighter 6 can do different OD Sunshot depending on which 2 punch buttons you press. Light and medium will be horizontal, medium and heavy will go diagonal, and light and heavy will do horizontal but longer initial movement. On default layout, the last two isn't much of an issue since you can press one of the buttons with your thumb and another with your index finger. However, light and medium are both face buttons, so you may have to awkwardly press both with your thumb, which can be a bit cumbersome. You can set a macro to alleviate the problem, but if all your buttons are already used for other macros, this can be an issue. In these situations, 6 or 8 face button layout or pads with backside buttons can come to the rescue. Instead of operating it all with your thumb and index finger, you can change hand position to claw style or assign extra macros to your backside buttons. Just a heads up, claw style is ergonomically terrible for your hands due to buttons being small and close together. If you have hand injuries, I highly suggest avoid doing this. Ingrid is an edge case in modern fighting games, but older ones may be full of them. There may be games that require you to press awkward combinations, such as the 2 horizontal or vertical face buttons. Or worse, require to mash all attack buttons as fast as possible. Pads are generally not built for those games. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you may be at a disadvantage. Regarding cost and convenience, pads are excellent. Most of them are much cheaper than the average button or stick controller and much smaller, so extremely helpful if you travel a lot. Look at me, I can carry 2 of these bad boys in my fanny pack. I am the coolest gamer at the venue. Now the thing with these though are that they are prone to breaking and harder to repair than your average box-shaped controllers. I'm not a dedicated pad player, so I can't tell you my experience, but you can hear about fighting game pros going through a few pads over the years. Whereas my controller is still using the original parts after almost 10 years of usage. The only pad to last me longer than that is my GameCube controller that has seen so much usage that my analog sticks have smoothed out. It's incredible how sturdy these things are. If only modern controls are built on the same level of quality. If you're the type that wants to make things last, you should research fail points and repairability beforehand. Next is arcade sticks. I'm going to keep this simple. If your back is hurting and you find arcades nostalgic, get this. Jokes aside, there are a few advantages to this device, so let's take a closer look. These sticks are comprised of 3 main components: lever, switches, and springs. Whenever you move the stick, the bottom half of it acts as a lever to press one of the 4 directional buttons, and once you let go, the spring would push the stick back into the neutral position. Very simple mechanism, and if you think about it, it's not much different from a D-pad. Your thumb is the stick, and you're pressing 1 or 2 of the 4 available buttons at a time. If the concept is the same, isn't a D-pad better since you have less travel time between directions? Maybe. I think it really depends on your setup and how developed your muscles are. If you have nimble thumbs, pad may be the way to go. If your wrists are more dexterous, use stick instead. This is where your background really comes into play. I play a lot of sports that require holding some sort of equipment: baseball, tennis, basketball, etc. So quick snaps of the wrist and fingers came very natural. For this reason, stick feels much better for me, but if you don't have that experience, another type of controller might be better for you. Another thing to consider is that there are many ways to hold and customize a stick. I personally hold a controller by putting the stick between my pinky and ring finger, then cupping the ball top. My hand is vertical and is in a very ergonomically healthy stance, but if you have issues and discomfort doing this, you can easily change it. I've seen a myriad of ways such as palm, 2 fingers, wine glass, etc. I honestly think stick is a solid choice if you have any special quirks in your hands. Lastly, unlike D-pads, sticks are extremely customizable. You want a bat instead of a ball top? Here we go. Do you want it sparkly? No problem. You want to go back to neutral faster to do techniques like Korean backdashes? Shove in some high tension springs. You were misguided as a child and have horrible taste? Install a circle or octagonal gate. That's a joke. Gates are notches like the ones you see in a GameCube controller so that you can have more accurate angles. Most sticks nowadays have square gates, for a reason. Regarding the attack buttons, I'm going to combine them with button types because they are essentially the same. So, off the directional inputs and button types. Also, you may have noticed by now, but I'm calling leverless button type. Some pads don't have analog sticks, so I dislike the classification. If I had a choice, I'd call it separate buttons for directions, or SBD for short. Anyways, this one is the anomaly of the group. D-pad and stick generally allows you to press at most 2 of the directional buttons at once. However, for button types, you can press any of the 4 directions at any time as you assign different fingers for each direction. So if your finger coordination is good, you can input directional changes much faster than a stick or D-pad. For example, if you want to throw out a back charge to forward move such as a sonic boom, D-pad and stick users require the player to go from back, neutral to forward. Thumb or wrist have to travel from one side to the other. However, with button types, there is no travel time. It's just one finger pressed to the other. So theoretically, button types have the fastest possible directional inputs. Then why bother with the others? Faster is better, right? Sure, if you can actually do that. The problem with button types are that it requires coordination from all 4 fingers instead of a thumb on a D-pad or a palm and wrist on a stick. There's a lot more moving parts, and that can be a problem for some people. For example, many have weaker ring and pinky fingers compared to their index or thumb. This is just natural. So doing quarter circles or Z motions from right to left can be a challenge. Another common issue is that people tend to hold buttons for too long. Let's say I'm doing half circle forward. If you are inputting too fast, there is a chance that the down input can be omitted. Here, you can see my weak ring finger holding the left direction a bit too long, so I get the down back for longer than intended, while my stronger index finger moved too fast so that I went straight from down back to down forward. Yep, too fast can be an issue for the uncoordinated. Now, most fighting games have input leniency, so even if you miss some directions, it will still complete the motion, but some games do not have that luxury. For example, Blade Blue requires that down input in half circles, and as a person who has this issue, it is extremely frustrating. It's to a point where I switch to stick for some characters. And if you have trouble with these, imagine doing 360 and 720 inputs. Although, I am not saying this is impossible. It just will require a lot of practice for most people. If you have background in using WASD games such as FPSs, or playing finger-intensive instruments such as piano or violin, I highly suggest button type controllers. You most likely already have the finger dexterity. The second thing to consider is input techniques when using simultaneous opposite cardinal directions, or SOCD in short. This is just a fancy way of saying pressing opposite directions like forward and back at the same time. So what happens when you do this? Well, it depends on game and controller. For example, if Tekken 8 detects forward and back at the same time, it will combine the inputs to neutral. In Street Fighter 4, it would prioritize forward. Each of these can be taken advantage of. Let's say you want to do Korean backdashes. This requires a really awkward input of back, down back, neutral, and repeat. I find this extremely difficult on stick or pad without practice. However, on buttons, you can simply hold back and tap down and forward repeatedly. Much easier to do in my opinion. There are numerous techniques out there based on how SOCD is handled, so go search for them if you're interested. Although, there is one important thing you should consider. SOCD may be handled differently based on controller. For example, older controllers may send the up signal when both down and up buttons are pressed, rather than sending both inputs to the game. And this can be an issue if you plan to play competitively in some games. Official Street Fighter 6 tournaments requires the controller to send both signals so that the game itself can process the inputs, or have the controller go to neutral. Up being prioritized is considered breaking the rules. So if you plan to compete on button type controllers, make sure to check out how SOCD is handled in tournament guidelines before making a purchase. Another thing, some tournaments such as the aforementioned official Street Fighter 6 events will not allow stick and button type controllers to have more than one method of inputting directions. So controllers such as mine, where stick and buttons both exist, will not be tournament legal unless you have ways to turn one of them off while the other is activated. Honestly, I dislike this rule because this should disqualify most pads, including generic ones, since both D-pad and analog stick can be used to make inputs. It just doesn't seem fair. Alright, let's get to the attack buttons. Similar to button type directional inputs, the advantage here is that you can easily press multiple buttons in quick succession. So if the game and character you want to play requires things like weird button combinations, plinking, or mashing, the style is much more convenient. Now the complicated thing about these controllers are that layouts can be quite different. For example, traditional arcade layouts such as Noir and Vuelix use 30mm buttons and can be aligned differently. You can see that Noir buttons are angled downwards as it goes to the right. Button type controllers on the other hand uses 24mm buttons, so they have a much tighter layout. So in order to decide what is right for you, you should consider a few things. First, how big are your hands? If they are small like mine, 24mm buttons might be a better fit. If you have long fingers or large hands, 30mm might feel better. Second, what kind of game are you playing? Most older games are designed around 4 to 6 button usage, so any traditional 6 to 8 button layout is sufficient. However, some modern games such as Street Fighter 6 may give you an edge if you use macros, drive impact, parry, double attack buttons, etc. Depending on your character and playstyle, you may get an advantage for having extra buttons. For example, some people may prefer to hit parry or impact with their thumb, so some controller designers may add an extra button on the bottom. Lots of choices. I think the best way to determine your preferred layout is to simply test it. You can attend an offline event, then ask the participants there to try out their controllers or ask for advice. I build custom controllers and I've had people ask me about them. As long as you're polite, most people will help you out. And while at it, make some friends. I make no exaggeration when I say the best part of the fighting game experience is the community. If you don't hang out with people, you're missing out on 90% of the fun. Now, if you don't have the luxury of a local scene, you can make some mockups. Most of the layout measurements are available online, or you can ask the manufacturers for their dimensions. You can then print them out or draw them on paper. Once that is done, you can lay your fingers and see which one fits you the best. As a heads up, if you have hand injuries or prone to them, I would avoid controllers that have the directional inputs close to the attack buttons, especially button type controllers. When your hands are close together with the palm facing down, they angle your wrists in really bad ways. That's why when you see ergonomic keyboards, they are usually separated to give you better angles. If you want optimal, you should aim for shoulder width. For sticks, I have seen manufacturers design with bigger gaps, but yet to see them for button type controllers. As a person who likes to promote hand health, this makes me very disappointed. Let's look at convenience. Sticks will naturally have bigger bases because they are prone to moving a lot more than button types. After all, you are wiggling a lever. Also, the expensive ones will have weights to make them more stable, so make sure to check how heavy they are. Regarding shape, the protruding lever may get in the way when putting them into cases or bags. If that is a problem, you can get sticks that can be easily disassembled to give you a flat surface. Button types, on the other hand, may come in much smaller and thinner forms. If you want something that's easier to carry around like pads, this might be a good choice. Another thing to consider is customizability. If you've used one for a long time, there may be a day you want to alter it. There's a lot of options. For example, you can change the button colors. Want to try out a different tactile feel? Get buttons with different switches. Or is a click sound too loud? Put some dampeners to muffle sound. The world is your oyster. However, in order to do these kind of things, you will need to access the inner parts. And some will be harder to do than others, so if you plan to customize, make sure you're getting one that is easily disassembled. Otherwise, you might be breaking parts or soldering. I think the ultimate customization-friendly controllers have the following. 1. Cases that has a latch and hinge so you can open them out without tools. Extra points if it has compartments that can fit parts such as cables. 2. Faceplates that can be removed and replaced with a different layout. If you want to change your button placements or convert between stick and buttons, this will allow you to do so without getting a new device. Lastly, a layer to put in artwork. This has nothing to do with functionality, but I think it's cool if you can print out artwork and place them in your controller for everyone to see. Cost-wise, most stick and button types will be much more expensive than pads. However, they are more likely to last longer, and even if they break, a lot of parts are replaceable. so if you have the means and want to invest long term, give these a try. With that said, that is the general overview of each type of controllers. If you have any specific questions, let me know in the comments. Also, if you found this helpful, consider subscribing to this channel and sharing this video with your community. Lastly, if you have love to spare, consider helping me through Patreon. It can support with as little as few dollars per month. Special thanks to Flying Wolf Fox, Creature with a Long Nose, and Vision Helping Device. Alright, until next time, have fun with fighting games.